Hello friends!
In this video we're gonna show you how we crashed a random stranger's wedding in India.
And although it's the third day of this wedding, I got no idea who's the bride. Weddings are the one thing that almost all cultures on earth have in common. It's an intimate ceremony, joining two people and connecting two families forever. It doesn't really matter if you live in the high mountains of Peru or the city jungle of New Delhi. For an individual, wedding remains as one of the most important days of their life. Well, and for us two travelers, being a part of such events is probably the best way to learn about new cultures. But clearly, there was a problem. We didn't have any friends from India getting married, and so we had to go with Plan B. Plan B is simple. We are going to find a random person's wedding ceremony and join it.
Wait, you want to crash a stranger's wedding?
Well, yes, but since we don't want to ruin anyone's special day, it doesn't matter that you're yelling at me loud that I still can't understand you. I think we need to accomplish some ground rules.
I got one. Rule number 1. We have to see the bride and groom to know what people wear in the weddings.
Number 2, we have to have a wedding feast.
Rule number 3. We have to dance.
Rule number 4, we have to keep low profile because we are not the stars of that evening. With our plan all set, there was just one thing still to do. A small tiny inconvenience of finding an actual wedding. For a few days, when walking on a street, we kept our eyes open and tried to spot events that looked like weddings to us. But you guessed it, no luck. Turns out crashing a wedding is much more work than one imagines. Yet all of this was about to change. As a day or two later, we received a message on our couchsurfing profile from a guy called Rajesh. Okay, we have found the wedding to go. I can't believe it. We got no idea what's gonna happen, but now an hour drive away. Let's go. Without joking, he wrote us he would love to invite us to his village, and there just happens to be a wedding there in a few days' time. Well, if this isn't faith, I don't know what is. Okay, we just arrived and... Arriving at Rajesh's village was quite a surprise for us. It was the side of India that we had not seen before. It was green, clean and quiet. Total opposite to the life we had experienced in bigger cities. As soon as we had made friends with our new host, we started bombing him with questions. How many people is gonna be over there at that wedding?
Around 3,000 people will be there.
Whose wedding is it gonna be?
My friend's sister going to marry today.
The biggest wedding so far in my life has been 150 people. It's like this small for India.
Yeah.
Rajesh realized quickly that our thoughts were more at the wedding and not his village. And so he offered us a deal. He said that he would do his best to get us into the wedding if, in return, we would be willing to spend a day helping out at his school. The deal sounded good to us, and soon our journey began. Since we had extra time, Raj decided to take us for a little hike before schoolwork. It was a nice trek uphill with views on surrounding valleys. Yet for us, it was once again an opportunity to learn more about the event this afternoon. We heard that most weddings here in India are 3 days long. First 2 days are usually in different groups, men and women separately. Both groups have their own traditions and ceremonies. I'm sure you've heard about the henna ceremony for women. And then on the 3rd day, everybody comes together for a big joint party. Well, as it turned out, today was the 3rd day. Part of me was really excited. It was no doubt going to be the biggest wedding we had ever seen. But there was also a part that was a bit scared, since most people at the wedding have just spent 2 days together, bonding and socializing, and so there was no doubt that us 2 random strangers joining the last night would catch everyone's attention. I was simply hoping that nobody would throw us out of the ceremony. When we got back from the mountains, we made our way to the school, and I'll be honest with you, it was much more fun than we thought. Rajesh is an English teacher here, and like all teachers, he makes deals in favor of his students. Of course, we made time to visit their classroom and told them about the importance of learning a second language. But that wasn't it. Afterwards, we played quizzes and outdoor games with the whole school. What a nice way it was to see local life. And I would say not a bad deal in exchange of Raj's help to get us into the wedding later on that night. When we got back home from school, it was hard to hide our excitement. We had been dreaming of this moment for a while now, and so wasted no time. We quickly got dressed. Hey! And now Rajesh is showing us how we should actually look like. You look brilliant, brother. Very good.
He said t-shirts and jeans, and now he looks this fabulous.
And then it was time to once again jump on a bike. And for the first time in our lives, go to crash a stranger's wedding. I would say it was a solid 30-minute drive, and on the way we even had time to make a tea stop. Yet while stopping, it became clear that even here on the side of the road, our presence was quickly noted. We stopped for a second and locals came to see, because apparently tourists almost never make it here. So, hello! People who live in rural parts of India rarely see tourists, and so they gathered fast to see and even touch us, the 2 weird foreigners. This incident made me realize that sticking to our rules might be harder than we thought. Even though we were worried, there was no turning around now. As soon as we got here, hundreds of pairs of eyes are looking at us. It feels kind of weird. I'm not sure what to do or where to go. The wedding was held in a backyard of a groom's parents. A beautiful venue had been built. As soon as we stopped, there's a crowd forming around us. Turns out sticking to our rules was going to be much harder than I had figured. And straight away, there was tens of people around us wanting to take pictures. So much of keeping low profile, we thought. But luckily, our presence didn't seem to bother anyone important. On the contrary, even the brides and groom's fathers came to greet us and ensured that we are welcomed at their family's wedding. This lifted a burden from our hearts and meant that we could be a part of the entire event without shame. Slowly, we started to discover everything that was going on around us. There didn't seem to be any clear structure to this event, at least not in a sense that we had seen in Western weddings before. Yes, there was few ceremonies held by small groups of people, but most of the crowd was simply talking, sitting, and of course eating. Luckily, we had made a list of everything we wanted to accomplish before leaving this ceremony, and it seemed like a good time as any to start crossing off things from a list. First off, food. You probably understand that feeding 3,000 people in one night is no easy task, and to make this happen, there is a whole team of people constantly cooking through the whole night. When it comes to eating, there is no assigned seats, but instead there was about 10 long tables where everyone can sit. As soon as we sat down, guys are coming with different meals. Chili sauce. Here we had chili soup, then chili sauce. It's pretty spicy. And finally chili bread. Okay, it was actually normal bread, but with all the chili from the rest of the meal, my taste buds tried to convince me that the bread was also spicy. It's very spicy. For dessert, those white balls soaked in syrup, and also something quite incredible. This thing was made out of cashew nuts and tasted heavenly. I'm not sure if it was the dessert talking, but altogether the food was really delicious. With our bellies full, We decided to carry on with the list. And next up, we wanted to find out how does wedding fashion look like in this part of the world. We saw both men and women in beautiful outfits, but none of them stood out as much as we would have hoped, which of course meant that although we were looking, we still hadn't found the bride and groom. It was weird, neither of them was here, attending their own wedding ceremony. But there was also another thing that troubled us, and this was a fact that there was no dancing. We had promised ourselves not to leave this party without a good dance, but so far it seemed more like a sitting event, and the only thing we had accomplished after hours of being here was taking 1,000 selfies and the fact that we now had a small group of people following us everywhere. I don't know how we deserve this, but anywhere we go we have an entourage of about 10 people. Suddenly, about an hour after sunset, we started hearing music from the distance. It seemed to catch the attention of others as well, and when we asked them about it, they said it was the groom and his party. We weren't sure what it meant, but soon found out that for the last 2.5 days, the groom with his family and friends have been partying together. Almost like a bachelor's party. And at this moment on the third day, the groom would be brought to the ceremony to join his future wife. The mood amongst the men was much different from the rest of the crowd. As soon as they saw us, they invited me to dance with them. And it was impossible to argue. Their dancing came straight from the heart. And it was a pleasure to be a part of it. Yet while I was dancing, Liisu noticed another thing. There were 2 identical men on the horses. It just didn't make sense. But when Liisu started to ask around about it, she found out the truth that had been missing for us for hours. Turns out it was a double wedding, and it kind of made sense, because even the photo shoot corner had 2 pink couches, which later on will be occupied by everyone who wants to take a picture with a newlywed couple.
We just found out that it actually is a double wedding. Oh, silly us.
So there's 2 brides and 2 grooms. We have seen the 2 grooms. Now we have to see 2 brides and we're ready to go. By that time, we had been at the ceremony for a good 6 hours. And as we realized, weddings in India are not really focused on the couple who's getting married, and they are much more like social gatherings where friends and family come together to chat, enjoy each other's company, and of course eat. Many people who come here don't even get the chance to meet the bride and groom, yet we had a mission. I refuse to leave this place before I find out who is the bride and who is the groom. It should be the etiquette of crushing weddings that you actually know whose wedding you crushed by the end of it. We had already unwillingly broken the 4th rule by becoming the center of attention, but we could not afford to break another. We just had to see the bride. And so once again we started to look for the bride. And then it happened, just when we were about to leave. So we just found out that we have to leave this wedding because our wedding guy Rajesh has to be home, but like God's gift, the bride just arrived, so we can see the bride before we leave. Things started moving. The grooms were once more saddled on their horses, and before them, a white car pulled in front of the house. Like paparazzi, we wiggled between people to catch a glimpse of the bride. And then, as fast as they appeared, they also vanished. Rest of the ceremonies continued indoors. For about 15 seconds, we saw 2 brides.
And seen 2 grooms as well.
We saw 2 grooms, and I think this concludes us crashing the Indian wedding. It was as intense as we expected, and we will see you again in a little bit less than a week.
Until then, check out this video up here of our other adventures.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
So once more, we jumped onto a bike and disappeared into the Indian night.